It's that time of year again, summertime. And when it's this hot, everybody wants to be by the water, whether it's poolside, lakeside, seaside. But what do you do with those soggy, sandy swimming costumes when you're done? I have a great idea on how to deal with that so you can pack it away and be on your way. Additionally, I have some ideas for some summer projects that will help you beat the heat on this episode of Doll Belly Knits. Welcome to this episode of Doll Belly Knits. My name is Annabelle and you can find me here on YouTube as Doll Belly Knits. Other places that you can find me on social media include Ravelry and Instagram as Doll Belly, and there's a group for this vlog on Ravelry. If you search in the tabs for Doll Belly Knits, you'll find me and other viewers in the forums chatting it up. This episode is all about summertime knitting and summertime issues that you can fix with quick, relatively easy projects. I'll be going through some works in progress, some finished objects, as well as some Christmas knitting, and I have a magical memory to share as well. If you are a return viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you coming by every week to see me ramble on. If you're a new viewer, hopefully you'll find something that you like and you'll want to come back. If that's the case, don't forget to click like and subscribe so that you can be notified the next time that I upload a video. Right, let's get started. I'm going to talk about works in progress first, and the first work in progress I'm going to talk about is the wedding blanket. It's getting very large and difficult to show, but my mom, hey mom, had a good suggestion of laying it out on my bed, which happens to be a queen size bed, which is the size of the blanket that I'm going for. So I will insert a picture here. And you can see that I'm not ready to turn the corner yet, but you'll also see that I didn't hang the blanket all the way over the edge of the bed to the point that you would probably like it to be. I only covered the mattress, and there's a reason for this. Once this blanket is complete, it is going to be pretty large. And once you start washing it, once you start using it, it is going to stretch. It ends up having a mind of its own. So if you start out using the dimensions that you think, like the finished dimensions, how you would really like it to look when you lay on the bed, it'll probably end up being really, really large, like too large and cumbersome to handle. Not to mention really not easy to put inside your washing machine. So I tend to create the blanket and only take it to the mattress edge. And then I know that over time and with washing, it's going to stretch and get larger and be relatively the size that you would like it to be when it lays on the bed. So I am making progress. It's just really difficult to tell, not only because it's large, but because of the way that it's constructed, it being end to end, tip to tip. So every row, until it's time to turn it and start decreasing, becomes larger and larger. And it's just really difficult to see the progress. But I think last time, I definitely remembered showing this yarn. This was that Red Heart gemstone color, and I had just started on this particular sage green. I am done with this sage green. I'm ready to add the next color. So it is going, it's slow going, but it's going. And like I said last episode, I do have some time to work on this since I'm going to try to round up all the kids that participated in crochet club to add stitches to the blanket, since this blanket is for their teacher. So I got some time to work on it, and I'm just going to keep plucking away. Considering this episode is supposed to be all about summer and summertime knitting, you would think working on a blanket this size is not an appropriate summertime project. Yes and no. Because this is a C2C blanket end to end, the way that it's constructed, it being triangular in shape until it's time to decrease, you can actually maneuver and position this blanket so it's partially on your body while you're crocheting it. Instead of a traditional side to side where you have the entire width and then the length of the blanket over top of your legs, this one, like I said, you can kind of push it off to the side and work at it on an angle. So it is possible to actually work on this in the summertime, which is great since most people end up getting married in the summertime or in the early fall. And I have found myself time and time again working on a blanket this big during the summer months and in the heat. However, I'm still able to stay cool because I can position it off to the side of my body. So yay, summertime knitting project number 1. Next work in progress that I'm going to talk about is the Bird of Fire. Again, you guys have seen this time and time again, and I know you're probably like, will you just finish it already, Annabelle? And I'm working on it. But I do tend to push projects that are for myself off to the side so that I can meet deadlines on projects that are for other people and are for gifts. But I wanted to show this again for this particular episode because of the fact that I think this is a great summertime knit. So just a little bit about the project. This is a Bird of Fire, which is a pattern by Sarah Wilcox. And also, I am participating in a knit along hosted by Mel Brown of Mel Brown Crafting Podcast. And if you would like to join, it's not too late. There's no deadline or timeline for this particular project. So if you go on over to Ravelry and you search for her in the groups, you'll find a particular thread in the forum that is specifically about this Bird of Fire. And Sarah Wilcox, who's the designer, is participating. So if you have any questions or problems with the pattern, you can ask her directly. This is very light and airy because it's sock weight yarn. So it definitely makes it summertime friendly. Additionally, I have chosen some pretty aquatic looking colors. So it makes it inspiring and wanting that I want to work on it in the summertime. And I think everybody feels that way. When you're trying to pick a project, you tend to take in what's going on around you as part of your inspiration. I've been seeing on Instagram people putting up polls of sock yarn, which sock yarn should I use, and inevitably, that's the wrong word. Inevitably is the right word. People tend to pick the one that is the most summery. Additionally, it is not that huge in the construction. It is constructed from side to side, and then you would flip it to add the collar. So when you're working on it, you only have this much of the fabric on your legs. So it certainly is heat friendly in that way. So definitely the types of yarn that you're going to use in your project, the colors that you're going to choose, those are all things that can help make your project perfect for knitting for summertime. Okay, next summertime project and work in progress for me is a pair of socks. I have been trying new techniques in sock knitting in 2018. This particular pair of socks is the first time that I am using different colors for the heels and the toes and the cuffs. So that's new. Additionally, I am going to be doing an afterthought heel for the first time as well. I've done an afterthought thumb on a pair of colorwork mittens that I did, but this is the first time I'm doing an afterthought heel. So that's going to be exciting. And I'm also adding a pattern of my own design. I basically looked in a knitting book and I saw a pattern that I liked, and I'm putting it in the sock where I think it's going to look the best. I showed last time, and I've actually knit quite a bit. There's my progress keeper. I don't know if you can see, but the pattern that I'm doing is a triangle, and so far I've done the triangle with the point down, but I've inserted my line for where the heel will be put later on, and now that this part of the pattern from the line up is going to be the cuff, I've decided, which it's terrible because the yarn is so dark, I've decided to put the triangle tip up. So that's just something different. I thought that was, I don't know, there was something about that that just seemed right. So I'm going to try and write this up as a pattern so that I'll be able to put it on Ravelry. And in doing that, I am particularly, and I think probably other people could as well, you end up learning a lot about sock knitting techniques when you're trying to write down instructions for a sock that you've knitted. Because if you're trying to write down a pattern that you want to share with everybody, you have to basically know the names of the terms or figure out what the industry standard is for that particular technique that you're using. So, I mean, if somebody else wants to Google it and look it up and watch a video, they need to know what they're going to Google and look up. And I've discovered quite a few things about sock knitting, at least the way that I sock knit. And I'm finding that fascinating, and it's teaching me a lot as well. So if you've not ever designed a pattern before, and even if it's just a vanilla sock, I would encourage you to write it down with the idea in mind that you're gonna publish it as a pattern, because then it forces you to think about what exactly, what cast on am I actually using? What heel am I actually using? Instead of, in your head, well, I just do this. But to be able to really succinctly convey that information to somebody else, you have to know the name of the technique. So go ahead and give that a go. That might be something that you find interesting. You may actually then want to publish your pattern, or you may learn a new thing or two, which is always good. Additionally, sock knitting, it's the perfect summertime project and a great way to beat the heat because they are so tiny and they certainly aren't laying on your legs, and easily able to be put away in a nice cute little tub like this, which would be waterproof for poolside and lakeside and seaside adventures. Okay, this is the section of the show where I'm covering my Christmas knitting. The only project that I've been working on so far is for hubby, so probably by now hubby knows that this is the point of the show, that he needs to look away and do something else for a few minutes. I'm going to have these people trained that once they hear jingle bells, they're just going to look the other way. It's going to be like Pavlov's dogs. So the project that I'm working on is a project by Stephen West. And if you are watching the show, just remember that you definitely need to look at the screen because I'm going to not say certain things because I am trying not to give away details. So this is the name of the project. So you can get it on Ravelry. You can look at it on Ravelry. You'll be able to see other people's renditions of the project. It does come in two different sizes, a large and a small, and that is based on the size of the needle and the weight of the yarn that you're using. Which, by the way, I wanted to say something about gauge because I've mentioned in all the times that I've showed this project so far that I am using a smaller needle than the pattern calls for. I'm doing the large size because I'm using a worsted weight yarn, which the name of the yarn is Red Heart. It's Chic Sheep by Marley Bird. And I do really like the yarn. I'm very happy with my choice. But what I had said previously was that I was using a needle that was smaller than what the pattern calls for. When using a worsted weight yarn, the pattern calls for a 5mm needle, and I'm using a 4.5. And I'm pretty sure I said that gauge doesn't matter, but it still does. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter if this project is a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller at the end when it's finished, but in order to get the right amount of yarn that you need to know your gauge, because the designer bases how much yarn they suggest you need on the gauge. So gauge really does matter. Nobody likes doing swatches. It seems like it's such a waste of time, and then you just want to get into the project and start knitting. But I think this is another life lessons learned, that you need to make sure that you know what gauge you are knitting at so that you get the right amount of yarn so that you don't have a problem. Fortunately, I do think that I have judged myself correctly. I happen to be a loose knitter, so using a needle that is smaller than what the pattern calls for usually ends up getting me to the gauge that the pattern suggests. So far, I have enough yarn. I don't think I'm going to run out. I think it's going to be okay, but this is just a lesson to everybody else. Check your gauge. Whether you're making a sweater where the finished project really matters or not, check your gauge. Okay, so here it is. And this sucker is huge. I am up to 300 stitches. That's a lot of stitches for one row. So, whew, I've been saying I think this is going to be done really quick, which this is quick for me. It is going to be done really quick. There's two parts of the project, and I'm getting ready to move on to the second part. So I do think I'm going to be done sooner rather than later. But again, like with the C2C blanket, it's like the more you knit, the more you have to knit. This project is also a good summertime knit, even though it's worsted weight yarn, because it's not particularly deep, probably until you go to block it. So there isn't a lot of fabric laying on your lap while you're trying to knit. Still, let me try to show you what I got going on here. Here's the progress keeper from last time. So yeah, it doesn't seem to be as much there doesn't seem to be as much progress, but that's because it's 300 stitches wide at this point in time. But look at that. I love that pattern. It's so pretty. This end though is killing me. I hope that blocks out. And I don't understand why. But this is where we are. So now I'm going to be moving on to the second section, and that's a different pattern. So I'm really excited to see this finished. I think this is going to be lovely. My husband's going to rock it. And I'm super excited to have my first Christmas knitting project almost done. I promise next episode I will have a new Christmas project on the needles to share with you. So that ends the Christmas knitting section, and hubby, you can look back. Okay, finished objects, and this is one of my particular favorites. My family and I do tend to go swimming on a regular basis. We've kind of dropped off a little bit, but even during the winter months, my one daughter was diving, so we were spending at least one time a week, if not twice a week, at the pool. And this is what got me thinking about this particular project. When you're done at the pool and you're changing your clothes and you're going to get in the car, especially like we were in the wintertime, you're not wearing your bathing suit home. You're taking it off and changing. And additionally, we would stop on the way home, like at the grocery store or something like that. So you got this wet suit, and like, what do you do with it? What I was doing is I was actually just using a vegetable grocery bag from the store. I would give all the kids a plastic vegetable grocery bag and tell them to put, wring out their suit the best that they could and then put it inside the bag and then put it inside their rucksack. Unfortunately, I don't really like that for several reasons. Number one, I try not to get those vegetable bags unless I have to. I don't think they're great for the environment, And do you really need to put all your vegetables in a bag just to take them home from the store? Probably not. Additionally, some of those bags are really thin, so it's really easy for a hole to get poked in it. And that would happen on occasion. By the time the kids got home, they ended up having a wet, soggy rucksack, and it kind of defeated the purpose. So what I decided to do is to make our own wet bags. And ta-da! Here's the one here. Now, by no means is this a professional job. I've told you guys time and time again, I don't like sewing. I don't like math. I don't like having to figure it out and be precise. On top of that, my sewing machine is broken and I'm having to jury rig it just to use it. And I've spent more time messing with the machine than I have actually sewing. So that makes me not want to do it. But I've had this project in mind for a while and I finally was able to get it together and complete one of them. And I've actually started on the second one as well. But you may be able to make this with the stuff that you have on hand at home as well. So what I did was, this is fabric. It's actually a fat quarter that I got from Aldi. Like way back in May when they started rolling out their summer projects, there was like a package of these of this fabric that was all seaside themed. So like this one's polka dots, and then there's a yellow and white striped one. There's one that has like anchors and sailboats on it. So they were really, really cute, and I knew like, yes, this is what I'm going to use for these wet bags. So I've had this on hand and I've been saving it. I followed the instructions of a video from the channel Made Every Day. Dana is the host of that channel, and it is the video of a double-lined zipper pouch. I will insert the link for that in the show notes so that you can take a look at that yourself. It's really easy to follow her instructions and the video. I, unfortunately, being the non-sewist that I am, had some difficulty, not only because of the machine, but sometimes my brain's not working. So you see some photos that I had some issues where the lining wasn't in the right order. But if you follow her instructions to the T, I promise you this will be easy. What I used, again, the outer fabric is a cotton from the Aldi that I got. It's got a zipper right here, color coordinating zipper. And on the inside is the PVC cotton, or the laminated cotton that I've had on hand to use for the snack bags that I'm going to replace. So I already had everything that I needed to make this. And again, it was easy once you put the fabric in the right order and actually get your sewing machine to work. My bag is pretty long, and that's because my zipper is only this wide. The size of your zipper is going to determine the size of your pouch. This is what I had on hand, so I went with it. It actually ended up working out perfectly because all I had to do was cut the fabric, this cotton fabric, right in half. It was literally this size as a whole, so I was able to just cut that in half. So I love that. Minimal cutting, minimal measuring. So that's why it's as long as it is. You can make yours whatever size you want in terms of length, but the width is going to be determined by the size of the zipper. So I'm looking forward to using this. I'm hoping that it will do the job. But even if you don't have laminated cotton at home, you can actually make your own. Dana from Made Every Day also has a video on that, and I thought it was super smart that she suggested reusing an old pool float as the way to laminate your cotton. I mean, it's not truly laminating it, you're basically making 2 layers for that, but everybody has one of those pool floats that you took to the seaside or to the pool and it popped 10 minutes later. So if you didn't throw it away and you just chucked it into the garage until this year, you can pull that out and you can use that to laminate what you have, whatever cotton you already have at home. So that was a great tip, and I highly recommend that you give that a go if you happen to be in that position and have those things on hand. Now we come to the part of the show that I like to call Magical Memories. It's a part of the show where I cover something that happened in the last week that was a memory in the making, either for me and my friends or me and my family, and it also had a woolly connection to the adventure. My family and I have been making it a regular habit to spend some time by our local reservoir. The reservoir is actually so large that we've taken to calling it the lake. And in this past week in particular, there was a gathering at the clubhouse there, and we had a really nice time watching sailboats and windsurfing and spending time with friends. And there was actually a Kaylee, which is the first time I've participated in one of those. That's like a square dance for my American viewers. But the reason that I wanted to cover this in the Magical Memories section is that it really is so inspiring to be out in nature and to take inspiration from nature and bring it into your knitting, your crocheting, whatever your crafting is. And I've just had the best time sitting by the water, watching the birds, the animals, seeing the boats and other, windsurf, wind sail things on the water, and just feeling that vibe to be by the water and to be working on projects such as my bird of fire that has an aquatic theme to it, or even the socks that are tiny in nature and I've added the triangles to it that actually kind of look like the sails on the sailboats. I think everyone should really try to find a spot and to get out into nature and really look around you and spend that time drawing the inspiration in. It has also been really magical for us as a family, having our children out there and making sure that they're getting a good dose of nature. I'm sure everybody has heard the term nature deficit disorder, but it is a real thing, and our children are suffering terribly from not having enough nature time. And it's really important to get kids out there outside. We know that their brains are developing and that the neural pathways that they use the most are the ones that are going to become the strongest. So spending all this time on an electronic is only going to strengthen their desire and their need to have that kind of interaction versus being out in nature and climbing a tree. And I do think that although we have focused on children in regards to nature deficit disorder, I think adults are also vulnerable to having or suffering from this condition. Our pathways as adults have already been defined, but it's also use it or lose it. I mean, we all climbed a tree when we were kids, and it's like a full 5 sense experience to do something like that. You can smell the tree, you can feel the tree, you can see the tree. And I'm not advocating anybody go climb a tree, especially if you're like me, a little uncoordinated. But just being near that and being near nature will evoke those memories and cause those pathways that may have gone dormant to light up again. So I highly recommend that if you can, go outside, even if you sit on your front step and the only nature around you is the grass in front of your house. That is going to be so worth it. And you can draw inspiration from it and bring it into your crafting, and it's really going to be better and healthier for you, for your brain, and if you're setting a good example for your kids' brains as well. That's it for me for this episode of Doll Belly Knits. Until we see each other again, I hope you have happy knitting. I hope you stay well, and I hope that you definitely get out there into nature or any place else and make some magical memories of your own. Bye! a woolly adventure attached. Whew. It's that time of year again, summertime. And God, it's so difficult to do this. I hate this. That one's pretty good. I don't know why I start whispering to myself when I don't like what I'm saying, but that's what I do. Maybe the whispering helps. Crazy. Unfortunately, again, I don't knit. So I had some, I don't knit. Ugh, I do knit. That's terrible.